Welcome to Cooking with Cardboard. My name is Ben. You can find us on Twitter at cardboard_cooks. I'm excited to talk about Jumpstart this week. How are you in this week, Martin?
I'm doing fantastic. You can also reach us on our Gmail account at cardboardcooks@gmail. You can find us on YouTube at Cooking with Cardboard, and you can find me on Twitter at golem_mtg. So, are you excited for another set?
Oh, you can never have enough, right?
I don't know if that's true, but it sure seems to be Wizards' mantra.
They've got to make money somehow, but I don't know.
Yeah, they got to keep making more money. So, how many sets have come out this year? Do you know off the top of your head?
That's a great question. I would guess like 30, but that I feel like I'm very concentrated here lately. I feel like it seems like a lot more than it actually is, but I know it's a lot. How many is it?
So it will be 8 with Jumpstart. So we had Neon Dynasty, Baldur's Gate, New Capenna, Dominaria, Double Masters 2022, Brothers War, and Unfinity. And then
Oh,
we're going to
wow.
have this one. We also had 20 Commander decks released this year. We had 2 from Kamigawa, 5 from New Capenna, 4 from Baldur's Gate, 2 from Dominaria, 2 from Brothers War, and then the 5 starter decks that either came out or are coming out this month.
Wow.
So that's the same number of Commander decks that were released in the first 4 years of the Commander format.
That's
So they
insane.
had, yeah, 5 a year. That was their thing for 5 a year for 5 years or for many years. And so the first 4 years we got the same number we got in just 1 year. So they've definitely cranked up the speed of releases.
Yeah, I feel like that also just shows like how popular Commander has come as a format. Like I feel like people are really starting to play it, and Wizards is finally showing that, or finally understanding that they can make a lot more money in that area because there are more players there. But I feel like there's got to be a little bit of fatigue there as well.
Yeah, I feel like as a player, we just have to be able to pick and choose what we pick up instead of saying, "Oh, I need all of the cards that I think I might want to play from this new set." You just kind of only pick up the ones that you're actually going to put in the deck.
Yeah, yeah. I feel like the pre-release and then a couple singles is kind of turning into what I've been doing, but it's challenging when there's so many new cards. I feel like every set it's hard to keep up.
Yeah, I was keeping a list of commanders from each set release that I wanted to build. And unfortunately, I have been adding more names to that list at a much higher clip than I've been removing names as I've actually made the decks.
Yeah, there's like
So at
a lot of excitement around the new commanders, but then before you can even get around to building enough of them, there's more.
Exactly. And I spend probably more than your average player on new cards, and I can't keep up. So I can't be the only one out there that's starting to get to the point where I'm like, well, maybe I'll just tune the decks I have and shelve some of these other ideas.
Yeah, definitely. Speaking of new cards, did you happen to get your Magic 30 Secret Lair box?
I have not. It could be on my porch right now, though. It's supposed to be delivered today.
Oh,
So once I get that in, I'm gonna throw up a video on YouTube showing me opening it, probably getting all of the terrible foils and none of the good ones. But that's my luck.
yeah, that's your luck. I'll be opening just the top tier foils. I'm sure. So I definitely I received my secret layer box this past weekend. But yeah, I'll do the same thing. I'll be recording it and putting it up on our channels. So hopefully pulling that foil chrome mox or necropotence. But we'll see.
Yeah, those would be the nice ones. I don't know if I open the foil mox, I might just sell it.
Yeah, that's
Uh,
true. I feel like I don't know if I would have a deck that I could actually play that in right now.
right, like if I put it in my Henzi deck, which I give all of my shiny things to my Henzi deck, I feel like it would start pushing it closer and closer to like too powerful. Even though it's really a fundamentally fair deck, I feel like you had something like Chrome Mox to it, and you're like really upping the explosiveness.
Yeah, yeah, it kind of puts it where every like 10th game it'll have that one game where it has the potential to pub stomp, which I know you want to avoid.
Correct.
Yes, yes.
So, do you know much about what Jumpstart is?
I'll tell you right now, Martin, I have not looked at a single Jumpstart card.
Well, that's great. I can go over all of them with you. But before I do that, I just kind of want to talk about what Jumpstart is. Jumpstart's a really cool product, and I'm afraid some people may not, you may miss some of the hype because there's been so much hype lately. But I want to take a little bit of a time to talk about that here. So Jumpstart's a really cool product in a sea of products, and I feel like it's going to be overlooked quite a bit. It really comes from like an old school way of playing Magic. When I was young and we were bored, we would sometimes just take a pack of cards, shuffle some lands into it, and sit down and play each other. And the ante would be the contents of the packs. So you never know. You could have a functional deck, draw the right lands at the right time, and win, and you get both rares. But it's just kind of a nostalgic thing, being able to sit down and play that kind of easy Magic with randomness mixed in. Well, there was a game not that long, I guess it's been 5 or 6 years or something now, but it's called Mashup. You could take two of their preset types, shuffle them together, and you make a temporary deck to play with in the game. And that's kind of what they're doing here. Is that each pack is like a theme booster, and it's going to have 1 to 2 rares on theme, and then a bunch of commons and uncommons that kind of like help support that theme or archetype. For example, one of the ones in white is Blink. Blink has cards that have enter the battlefield effects and then ways to flicker those cards in and out of play. And so there's like somewhat of a synergy. But you could always get that mixed in. And your other pack would be, let's say, mono black rats. So you have rats and Blink. Well, they don't really go together, but you try and piece together like a win. And it feels kind of like draft with training wheels.
Okay, so you just take two of the packs, you mix them together. Now, do you have? You said you don't have to add lands, or you do?
This case you don't because they're already in there.
Okay, that's pretty cool. So you could actually literally just buy some from your LGS, mash them together, and play with somebody else. That's pretty cool. It seems like a really fun format. Not a lot of thought going into it, but could surely lead to some really fun interactions.
Yeah, I think this is a great product for people that have like game night and some of their friends maybe play Magic, but don't want the headache of maintaining decks and don't want to try and pick up somebody else's ponderous commander deck and learn all the interactions to sit down for game night. If you have a box of this, everybody could grab 2 packs, shuffle them up, and just sit down and start playing.
Yeah,
Uh,
that seems really easy. I feel like that's also really easy for people that don't understand Magic. Is that something you think would be easy for somebody that was, picking up the game for the first time?
yeah, I think so. Especially if there was somebody there that could kind of walk them through how to play. There's a lot to learn in Magic, but these packs are fairly straightforward.
Yeah,
And
yeah. You
yeah,
kind of learn one lesson with each theme, and then you're able to play the deck pretty flawlessly.
I don't know about flawlessly, but yeah, you
Maybe
could get
not
through the deck.
flawlessly. Yeah, that's fair.
So I'm kind of excited for this because the first Jumpstart, I think it was released in 2020, was a huge success. It was about 2 years ago now, and it was such a huge success that the boxes got all the way up to $300 a box at one point.
Holy cow.
Um, but that was largely more production shortage than it was like they were printing gold. Right? This isn't like a low supply set intentionally. I just think it ended up being way more popular than they thought it was going to be.
Okay, so when you
Um,
say
it
when you say production shortage, Martin, as a new player, I'm a little. Does that mean that it just didn't make enough, or is that like something to do with just distribution somewhere along the line?
Production is the actual manufacturer of the cards. So 2020, I don't know if you remember, but we had worldwide shipping issues due to COVID.
No, I don't
Um,
remember. What is called? No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, yeah, I gotcha.
um, why I oughta.
Why yada.
So, but yeah, so they just couldn't get the cards into the people's hands fast enough, so prices went through the roof. And there were some really cool new cards out of that set, along with some pretty good reprints. And they've really kind of done it again with this set. There's a lot of really cool new cards and some really decent reprints, which I think everybody can enjoy opening these packs, whether you're a new or an invested player. The problem with this is that they've kind of taken the brand of Jumpstart and they've kind of misappropriated it a few times now. The first Jumpstart was in 2020, and then the next Jumpstart product was actually Jumpstart Dominaria United, Dominaria United. So they had a box where you had basically in that box you had 5 different themes you could get. one for each color. And then you'd have like a option of a reprint or a new rare, and that was it. Not a lot of diversity, not a lot of fun dynamic gameplay or unexpected combinations of cards coming together to make a unique experience. It was very boring, poorly executed. And then they did the same again for Brothers War.
Yes, yes. I bought one of the Brothers War Jumpstart packs, and I was really disappointed with what I pulled out of there. It was all green cards, and I think I had one rare, but it was one that I already had, and I showed the person that I was playing with for the Commander game the pulls, and it was we were both kind of like, wow, that definitely was not worth $3.
Yeah, that's the problem. Is the last couple so-called jump starts were such a small set of cards, and so your chances of opening something fun and interesting was very close to zero. So I feel like this is a good one for us to talk about because they've really come back to the original formula for this Jumpstart, which is Jumpstart 2022.
So you're thinking this is going to be a return to the classic Jumpstart? They're gonna come back to their roots and really get it right this time, as far as playing it both in EDH and just in the traditional Jumpstart method.
Yes, I think so. I think this is a home run. Very excited for the set. So in mono white, we have, versus the one or two archetypes you would have had in the last two jump starts from Dominaria and Brothers Ward, respectively. We have vehicles, knights, constellation, teamwork, spirits, blink, cats, law, and holy.
What the
And
heck
of
is
those,
teamwork?
that's how you make the dream work.
Oh, that's fair. That's fair.
Uh, they're all like little soldiers and things that kind of work together to try and create a combat advantage.
Okay.
But I mean, most of them make perfect sense, right? Like, but the cool thing is there's four different cats decks that you can open,
Oh, people are gonna love that.
right? And there's four different blink decks you can open. So it's possible to open like some kind of nut draw where you open two different white blink packs, and they go together so great.
Oh, that's really
Um,
cool.
So the breadth and scope of this jumpstart is much, much bigger than the last two failed attempts at jumpstart. Each color has approximately 20 different decks that you can open, and they are a huge range of play styles and types. A lot of them are creature based, as it is like a limited format, but I just was really impressed with the sheer scope that you can open now. I mean, there's even a snow archetype, which
Oh
is super
no,
cool.
snow's coming
Yeah,
back.
yep. There's Unlucky 13 as one of the types for black you can open. Of course, dragons, and then of course every player's favorite archetype, treasure, is one.
Oh, nobody's burnt out of that yet, right?
No, not even a little bit. Some of the reprints, there's some uncommon reprints that I like to point out that I think are pretty good. The Cold Steel Heart is in the snow archetype. There's also seven snow-covered islands in that one, which is pretty good. You got Spellstarter Sprites and Serum Visions. Exsanguinate is a really good one. That's one of those X spells that people like to run as a way to win from out of nowhere in a black ramp deck.
I've lost that card a
Um,
few times.
yeah, a couple tribal cards got reprinted. So Starnheim Aspirant is a 3 mana 2/2 that makes all of your angels cost 2 less. And in the same vein, Dragon Speaker Shaman is a 3 mana 2/2 that does the same but for dragons. Cultivate was reprinted, and Serum Visions, things like that. Nothing that's like high value, but these are the kinds of cards that we like to keep seeing because they're the kind of cards that we consistently keep putting in our decks. And the biggest reprint out of the uncommons is the Urza lands. So one of the themes is Urzas. Just Urzas. I don't know Urza's what, but it's Urza something. And this is like smack full of really good reprints. So you got three Urza's towers, two Urza's power plant, and two mines in the deck, along with an expedition map to help you find your missing piece, which is awesome. And with all of that mana, you get Karn Liberated, which is an amazing planeswalker and kind of absurdly powerful for this kind of format. You also get a Walking Ballista, which is another great way to dump all of your extra mana into to cause lots of damage.
Yeah, that's
It's
an
really,
expensive card.
yeah, this whole thing is expensive. This whole pack. Now, it's the only colorless of all of the decks. The rest are like 20 of each color, give or take. But this one's colorless. and it's got a lot of reprinted value in it, which I'm assuming that this is going to be like one of those ones you only get every 3 or 4 boxes or something.
Yeah, one of
It's
the
not
more
going to be
rare
one that you
ones.
see. Yeah, I imagine it's like the mythic level one. But
Gotcha.
yeah, so those low value reprints are always needed. They're always nice to see. Oh, Stitcher Supplier was another good one to keep an eye on. Stitcher Supplier has been, pretty high value card for a long time now. It's 1 black for a 1/1 zombie. When it enters the battlefield, you mill 3 cards, and when it dies, you mill 3 cards. So this is a 1 mana way to get 6 cards from your deck into your graveyard. You can reanimate it and things like that to try and recur that value, and it's just really strong in a lot of different strategies that are graveyard oriented. And I think it's like $3 or $4 for an
Holy
uncommon,
cow.
but it's in several of the black decks. So I'm hoping that will, you know, ease its price a little bit and allow people to pick those up if they needed them for a deck.
Yeah, kind of. I feel like that's pretty good in just about any black deck. That seems pretty good. I cannot believe they're reprinting Walking Ballista. Is that the highest reprint in the whole set, Martin?
I
Uh,
think Karn is the highest priced of the reprints.
the
Let me
Planeswalker?
see here.
Really?
Yeah, I think
Oh wow.
so.
I would not have guessed
Let
that.
me Ristic Study, $30. A lot of the prices are like so wonky.
No,
Like the
sure.
heuristic study here is they're saying that the only price for it is $50, but we know it's not worth
That's
50
not worth
bucks.
50. Yeah.
Yeah, get out of here with that crap.
No, 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 no.
Oh, he's all the way down to $13. He was like $40 at one point.
Wow.
Walking Ballista is $14,
Why did I think
and
Walking
then
Ballista was so expensive?
uh, I mean, there are versions that are more.
Huh.
Like there's the Secret Lair Drop series, kind of extended art kind of deal for 38. I think heuristic study is the most valuable reprint then. So going out of the common, uncommon reprints that are always good to get in these sets. We've also got some high value reprints in Goldspan Dragon, Karn Liberated, Emil the Blessed, a couple Planeswalkers, Massacre Worm's pretty decent. The Tree of Perdition is another one that I know people are excited about. But I mean, nothing that's like crazy super expensive. Not as expensive as some of these new cards. And let's get right into them.
Yeah. Let's do it.
First up, we've got a Rat Warlock. It's a Rat Lord that we've always needed. Its name is Ashcoat of the Shadow Swarm, a black and 3 colorless for a 3/4 legendary Rat Warlock. Whenever Ashcoat of the Shadow Swarm attacks or blocks, other rats you control get +X/+X until end of turn, where X is the number of rats you control. Also, at the beginning of your end step, you may mill 4 cards. If you do, return up to 2 rat creature cards from your graveyard to your hand.
Oof. That's a lot of rat words with rats on them. I feel like that's interesting as far as rat tribal goes. There's not a lot of other directions
Yeah.
to take it, but
Well, anytime I see cards like this, I think about tribal.
okay.
Um, Probably not like an optimal card for tribal, but I could see throwing this in the 99 of tribal where you're trying to get a bunch of creatures that have all creature types so that you can take advantage of various lords. And I could see this one being pretty strong. If your whole team are rats because they're tribal, this would swing for a lot of damage out of nowhere.
Isn't there a rat that you can have repeated copies of in Commander? I don't know what the card is.
There's two. The first one is Relentless Rats. It's black, and a colorless for a 2/2 that says you can have any number of Relentless Rats in your deck, and it gets +1/+1 for each other copy of Relentless Rats in the battlefield.
Okay.
So this could be a Relentless Rats one. You also have Rat Colony, which is a black and a colorless for a 2/1 rat, and you can have any number of rat colonies in your deck, and it gets +1/+0 for each other rat you control.
You know, not
So
not my style. I don't really love rats, but both. I mean, that's three different directions just off the top of our heads. There, you're going with the commander. I could see this being pretty popular and a pretty expensive card.
it seems like it's very expensive right now. I mean, it's showing that it's $57 on MTG price
Holy
previews.
cow!
I don't think I would want to run this as my commander.
Oh, you like it in the 99?
Um, I like this guy in the 99 because then he comes out of nowhere. If he's in your command zone, people are going to know what you're trying to do. Anytime you start building up any kind of board presence of rats, they're going to be afraid of this guy coming down and taking people out in one swing. So I think it's cooler to come out of nowhere with a card like this. I mean, if you had Craterhoof in your command zone, anytime you build up a board state, people are going to be trying to kill you or kill your stuff. And so for that reason, I don't love it as the commander, but I know people will still run it. I mean, people run Joda, right? And that's Joda's the same kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah. You can kind of one of these you can kind of see it coming, but maybe in the 99 of a rat tribal deck, unless you just run a bunch of ways to give it haste, I guess. But people would still be a little
But they'd still see,
weary.
oh,
Yeah,
he's got seven rats on the board, so at any minute now we could be dead to rat overrun.
yeah. That is definitely true.
So definitely a cool card, and I like it. Seems like strong, but pretty well balanced. Depends on how much returning rats to your hand is going to be good. Oh, very interesting. It says if you do return up to 2 rat creature cards from your graveyard to your hand, it doesn't have to be one of the ones milled that turn. So that's pretty key. So if you've had
Oh,
key rats die, this can get those back too.
so a little bit of self mill theme here built in.
Yeah,
Okay,
exactly.
gotcha. Well, next up we have Auntie Blight, Bad Influence. It is a legendary creature devil advisor for 2 colorless and a red. It has flying, and whenever a source you control deals damage to you, put that many +1/+1 counters on Auntie Blight Bad Influence. It is a 2/2, and it also has for a colorless and a red, as well as tapping it, you can remove X +1/+1 counters from Auntie Blight, and it deals X damage to any target. So we have a mono red commander here, little bit of more of a control theme than what I would expect from a mono red commander. I do like that the art is kind of like a little devil, a really cute looking devil whispering into somebody's ear. I mean, for a mono red, I don't have any mono red decks, but it seems pretty unique from that perspective. What do you think, Martin?
I think it's pretty unique. I don't know about control. When I see this, I kind of think some kind of suicide deck where
Suicide
it's
deck.
yeah. So like Flame Rift is a red and a colorless for a sorcery that deals 4 damage to all players. So
Oh.
that would say two mana. Everybody takes 4, and then this turns into a 6/6.
Oh, okay.
So very aggressive. And then if they've got the board stalled out where they have chump blockers, then instead of actually attacking with Anti Blight, you just remove all those X +1/+1 counters and dome somebody out of the game.
Yeah, that seems pretty
So
good.
that's probably how I would run it, and I'm sure there's a laundry list of spells out there that can do damage to everybody. Another way you could do this is turn this into a Death Touch Gatling gun.
Oh,
So if
yeah,
you give
remove
it,
one counter. I can see that. I see the line. Yes, yes.
yeah. So I like that all right. That seems like a more fair way to play it, but I do think this thing's got a lot of power if there's just enough of a critical mass of cards that deal damage to all players.
Yeah, or I mean, there's always the devil tribal route. There's a lot of cards that can make devils that when they die they ping something, right? So I know the other devil commander that I've seen that it seems like it would be good, and it's 99 or vice versa, is Zerzoth Chaos Rider. It is a similarly a mono red deck. It's a 2 colorless and a red for a 2/3 legendary creature devil. And whenever an opponent draws their first card each turn, if it's not their turn, you create a 1/1 red devil creature token with when this creature dies, it deals 1 damage to any target. And whenever one or more devils you control attack one or more players, you and those players each draw a card and then discard a card at random. So there's a little bit of synergy going on there. Maybe you're, pinging yourself for some reason and getting those counters onto Auntie. Regardless, it's a unique commander that I'm sure a lot of people are really excited to build around, especially for mono red. That has a lot of attractions that you can build off of.
Yeah, I think it'd be a pretty unique kind of design space. Next up, we got Isu the Abominable. Blue, blue, and 3 colorless for a 5/5 legendary snow creature Yeti. You may look at the top card of your library at any time. You may play snow lands and cast snow spells from the top of your library. And whenever another snow permanent enters the battlefield under your control, you may pay a blue, a white, or a green. And if you do, put a +1/+1 counter on Isu the Abominable.
Just in time for the holidays.
I like this guy. There've been a lot of pretty cool Snow Matters cards that are decent in Commander. I still haven't seen anything that jumps out at me as something being so unique or cool that would be a fun strategy. And this guy kind of feels like just more of the same. He's good, does the stuff that lots of cards do in blue, which is lets you play cards off the top of your deck. But I don't know. The anything you got in mind on this one?
Yeah, I mean, whenever you bring back up snow permanents matter, I'm more along the lines of permanents matter kind of creature commander that we have is Jorn, but that one's pretty fair. This one also seems pretty fair. It doesn't strike me as one that I'm like, oh, I got to go build that immediately, but it has some fun synergies. I really do like that the art of it. It's an abominable snowman. Like people are gonna kind of it's gonna get a few laughs at the table. It's gonna be fun to play with. Doesn't seem overpowered, so yeah, I think it's a flavor win for sure, if nothing else.
Yeah, it's. I feel like if it had been in Sultai colors, it could play in Jorn, God of Winter, which is a pretty good deck already. But it being in different colors kind of makes me, I don't know, feels like a little bit of a miss for me.
No, that's definitely fair. All right, well, next up we have Kibo Uktabi Prince. He is a 2/2 for two colorless and a green. He's a legendary monkey noble. He can tap, and each player creates a colorless artifact token named Banana with tap, sacrifice it, and add a red or a green, and you gain 2 life. And whenever an artifact an opponent controls is put into the graveyard from the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control that's an ape or monkey. He also has whenever Kibo attacks, defending player sacrifices an artifact. So you're kind of making those bananas and then forcing them to either sacrifice them or sacrifice another artifact and then getting some sort of reward off of it. Definitely a flavor win just for the fact that it's a bunch of monkeys and he's the monkey noble. It looks cool from an art perspective. I like that it is interacting with treasures on some degree. It seems like a win
Hmm.
overall. I mean, what do you think, Martin? I like this.
I like this card quite a bit. The flavor is a little odd though, because I don't know if I agree with making food artifacts. I don't really think of a banana as an artifact, so a little bit off on the flavor. Doesn't taste like a banana to me. Um, sorry, I couldn't help myself.
No, that was
The
good.
the thing I like about this a lot is it's going to punish people who have artifacts. And if there was ever a time to start having a commander that punishes people for artifacts, it's now with all of the treasures going rampant and they're going to be killing themselves. So it kind of makes me think of a card like Ancient Runes, which is a card I kind of like right now. It's a red and two colorless, and it says during each player's upkeep, it deals 1 damage to that player for each artifact they control.
Mm.
So there's also been other cards that give everybody treasures, or a target player treasure, and it seems like we're starting to get a group of cards that punish people for that. I like that it's Gruul because then you can also run the is it Viridian Revel, the card that allows is a green and a colorless for an enchantment. Whenever a artifact goes to graveyard your opponent's control, then you draw a card. So it forces them to have these artifacts and to sack those artifacts for benefit to you. I think it's cool. I like this commander because of that. I think the fact that it's a monkey noble is just a really nice frosting on it, but
Yeah,
it's cool.
yeah. I mean, the only other one that I'm like immediately like, oh, it's auto occlude is the Reckless Fireweaver.
Yes,
Anytime you're
for sure.
sacrificing artifacts, man, it's a colorless and a red human artificer. It's a 1/3, and whenever an artifact enters the battlefield under your control, Reckless Fireweaver deals 1 damage to each opponent. So if you want to go more of like an untapped theme, or just in general, that's just a good card to have anytime you're going to be making a lot of artifacts. I also kind of like the banana tokens. I don't know if that's going to be a sought after token, but kind of a cool one. Is that something that already exists in Magic, Martin?
No, no, it is not.
Okay.
So there were the food tokens, which they had a variety of different tokens that were like pies and things from Eldraine. Food tokens were a mechanic from that set, but they have and they're here and there other sets have used them again, I believe, but nothing for just a banana. So it's kind of weird that they said it's a particularly a banana instead of a food token, but
Yeah, odd. You'd almost think they'd
it
rather
is
do
odd.
food to do a food themed commander, but hey, I mean it makes sense with the
Well,
monkey, I
yeah,
suppose.
I mean, it's not really a treasure, but it's also not really a food. So a food you sack, tap 2 mana, sack it to gain 3 life, which is a lot of mana for that, right? 2 mana. This, you sack it, you get mana, and you gain 2 life. So a banana is really the best kind of food, I guess, because it is way better than the foods of Eldraine.
Ah, okay, yeah, interesting.
So if you have a way to proliferate the tokens, it could also be good.
A lot of different directions to go with this, especially as a commander. Seems like a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think so. You could also build it pretty much as a kind of a group heg style deck where you're giving everybody mana and effects and life, and you take it away from people who get out of control. I don't know.
Oh yeah, yeah, like a yeah group hug, monkey tribal,
Mm-hmm.
noble tribal, a lot of different directions.
All right, next up, I'm gonna do pirated copy. The blue and 4 colorless for a 0/0 shapeshifter pirate. You may have pirated copy enter the battlefield as a copy of any creature on the battlefield, except it's a pirate in addition to its other types. And it has whenever this creature or another creature with the same name deal combat damage to any player, you draw a card. So I like this guy a lot. Or gal, actually. It's a gal. She is a little expensive for a clone at 5 mana, which of course I'm not a big fan of that. But the fact that it allows you to draw cards whenever either creature with the same name, then you draw a card. I think this is really cool for like a clone deck where you're already wanting to clone a commander or someone else. Cloning a commander, obviously, you have to do one of the ones like body double, not body double, blue and 3 colorless,
Uh,
copy the creature or a
Spark double.
planeswalker. That's it,
Yeah,
spark double.
yeah.
But it's not legendary. And then if you clone the Spark Double version, then you can keep cloning that as many times as you want without having to worry about that the name problem legendary matter. But if you have like 5 creatures that all let you draw a card when they deal damage to a player, that's awesome. Or if an opponent has a bunch of one kind of creature, you can copy that, and then all of those hitting players will let you draw a card too. So really flexible, and I think it's cool.
Super
5 mana might be a bit much though.
super flexible. I mean, do we care that it's a pirate? I mean, it's cool, but is there a lot of like benefit that we can take from that? The only thing that I can think of off the top of my head is Malcolm, but is there a lot of pirate synergy?
There are some pirate decks that exist. Admiral Beckett Brass is probably the most popular of them. The Grixis commander, red, black, and blue with a colorless for a 3/3 legendary creature human pirate. Other pirates you control get +1/+1. At the beginning of your end step, gain control of target non land permanent controlled by a player who was dealt damage by 3 or more pirates this turn. So it's a steal your stuff commander. Requires, a number of actual pirates to be doing the stealing. So it fits pretty nicely into that deck, I would think. +1/+1 seems a little extra, but it's probably not the main reason you'd want to run this guy.
Yeah, I mean, just a cool effect. It's gonna get some laughs at the table being a pirate. Overall, a really cool card, and who doesn't love clones? More clones is more fun. So next up, we have Alondra, Sky Dreamer. He is a 2/4 for 2 colorless and 2 blue pips. He's a legendary merfolk wizard. And whenever you draw your second card each turn, create a 2/2 blue Drake creature token with flying. Whenever you draw your fifth card each turn, Alondra Sky Dreamer and Drakes you control each get +X/+X until end of turn, where X is the number of cards in your hand. Oh my gosh. So,
Busted!
yeah, this just it seems insane. It's the kissing cousin of the other is it Talrand or Tal
Talrand. Hey, buddy, go over there and get
I
Talrand.
I don't know what he's called.
You,
The art looks similar. That's the only reason I got there.
Talrand. No, Talrand it is. Talrand. He's blue, blue, and 2 colorless for a 2/2 legendary merfolk wizard, I think. I'm not really sure. But he is a 2/2, and whenever you cast an instant or sorcery, make a 2/2 Drake. So, cards that reward you for casting instants and sorceries are going to be good in Alondra because those same cards are also ones that tend to get you to draw multiple cards in a turn. So those two synergies, those two strategies go well together. So a lot of those cards that every time you cast an instant or sorcery, say draws a card or make a token, that's going to be so good together. And the fact that it's a allows you to run no threats in your deck. Basically, you could just have all draw cards, draw more cards, and that's your win cons is drawing cards. And how is that not fun magic?
Yeah, blue loves to draw cards. Notably, I will say that I believe Tolerant is standing in his picture. Alondra is sitting in hers, so that's something you got to remember when playing these cards. But other than that, I mean, you're drawing cards, you're slinging spells. It's a good card. I think you
Mm-hmm.
have an overrun in the command zone. If you're making a lot of drakes, it's a merfolk, it's a wizard, two tribes that people love building. This is definitely going to be a hot card.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Next card that I'm excited for is Benevolent Hydra. It's green, green, and X for a 1/1 creature Hydra. It enters the battlefield with X +1/+1 counters on it. Seems pretty standard. If one or more +1/+1 counters would be put on another creature you control, that many +1/+1 counter are put on it instead. You can tap it to remove a +1/+1 counter from Benevolent Hydra and put a +1/+1 counter on another target creature you control. Okay, that's a lot of words. This comes into play basically as a one power and toughness less than you paid. So if you paid 7, it's going to come into play with 5 +1/+1s, which makes it a 6/6. So about normal rate for Hydras. I really like the branching evolution here. The effect in the middle. It says if one or more +1/+1 counters we put on any other creature you control, that many +1 are put on instead. That's really strong. Plays really well with modular.
Oh yeah,
So yeah, and there's also that new
Master
the
Chef.
new
Yes.
wait Master Chef
Master Chef, you have hardened scales.
hardened scales. Yep. Mm-hmm.
I feel like this is going straight into my Grumgully deck. Any deck that wants to put +1/+1 counters on creatures you control, more +1/+1 counters are just good. This card seems insane. And it's a Hydra. Cool flavor. I like it.
So this card makes me think of Blaster Combat DJ, the Transformer from Brothers War. It's a 3 colorless and a red and a green for a 3/3 legendary artifact, and it says other non-token artifact creatures and vehicles you control have modular 1. That means they enter the battlefield with an additional +1/+1 counter on them, and whenever they die, you can put their +1/+1 counters on another target artifact creature. And it says whenever you put one or more +1/+1 counters on Blaster, then you convert it, which means you flip it over. And on its backside is really how you want to play this. It's a modular 3 artifact, not a creature. And it says pay X and tap it, move X +1/+1 counters from Blaster onto target artifact. That artifact gains haste until end of turn. If Blaster has no +1/+1 counters on it, convert it, activate only as a sorcery. So, and it's a green, red, and a colorless to cast them on that backside. So what this deck is really wanting to do is play a bunch of modular artifact creatures that synergize together, which is all about +1/+1 counters. They come into play with an extra +1/+1 counter on them because of the branching evolution effect from the
Really
Benevolent
good.
Hydra, right? So the Hydra itself is not an artifact. So a little bit of non-synergy there, but everything else on Hydra is basically reading this is going to play so good in the Blaster deck. It'll synergize really well, set up some crazy loops with artifact like Arcbound Ravager, 2 colorless for a modular 1 creature that says you can sacrifice a creature to give him a +1/+1 counter. And since he has modular, whenever he dies, you put a +1/+1 counter on another creature. So this is going to get exponential with the Benevolent Hydra out. So basically, you sack, and they also get an additional modular 1 from the effect from the DJ. So the Arcbound Ravager will sacrifice another modular creature, but it'll get the +1/+1 counter from its activation. It'll get the +1/+1 counter from the artifact, and that's 2 different instances of the +1/+1 going on. So it'll actually be 4 counters.
Yeah, that seems really strong.
It snowballs out of control. So I definitely think Benevolent Hydra is a slam dunk for the DJ deck, which is on my to build list, but we had that conversation, so maybe it's not on my to build list. Got to shorten that list down, man. But that was one I was really excited to build
Yeah.
around, and I think Benevolent Hydra is just so awesome in it. And it's just good in every Hydra deck, right? All the Hydra decks want +1/+1 counters. Giving them more +1/+1 counters is great.
Yeah, yeah. It's also a hot button issue for the Warhammer decks for that Tyranid deck. If if you're trying to upgrade that, I'm sure this would slap in that deck because it's all about +1/+1 counters and kind of X theme. So it seems good.
Absolutely. Card seems really good.
All right, next up we have Kinesos, Priest of Thassa. He is a 1/3 for a colorless and a blue. He's a legendary merfolk cleric. He has, if you would scry any number, if you would scry a number of cards, scry that many cards +1 instead. Also, for 3 colorless in either a blue or a green, you can look at the top card of your library. If it's a Kraken, Leviathan, Octopus, or Serpent creature card, you may put it onto the battlefield. If you don't put the card onto the battlefield, you may put it on the bottom of your library. Cool commander, Merfolk commander. It's also that Seafolk commander. Sweet art. It has a little Thassa look-alike. I really like it. I feel like it's gonna see a lot of play. It also has that scry theme with the Elminster, which was a really popular commander when it came out. Scrying cards is second to only drawing cards as far as fun goes. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah.
What do you think here, Martin? Do you see like this being a really popular commander, more in the 99? Where's this going?
Well, so there's a little bit of a problem with this card, identity-wise. It's blue and green. So you're right that it would go really well in a lot of the scry decks you're talking about, but Elminster's blue and white. So that color combination isn't quite right. And then the other deck it wants to be in, which is the Kraken, Leviathan, Octopus, Serpent decks that are out there. Those tend to be mono blue or blue black with Runekirk, the 1/4 flyer that can reanimate creatures from your
Oh yeah,
graveyard.
yeah, yeah.
That's blue black. So its identity here doesn't really fit into the archetypes I'd probably want it. But I think blue and green go really well together for a Kraken archetype because the green ramps you to play your big fatties. So the scry thing might just be a plus for that deck, but I could see running this in a deck where I'm just trying to ramp out giant idiot leviathans. Could be fun, but yeah, I think it was a big miss on this one, giving it the green pip because the green pip I think makes it where it wouldn't go in some of those scry decks that it would be so good in.
Yeah, so you're saying, hey, maybe this would have been a home run if you made that green pip into a white or a black pip where it already has a lot of synergy, you think?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, that's unfortunate.
Mm-hmm. But like I said, blue green go well together. But I do think that this would be a modification of an existing archetype that is a fan favorite. I know a lot of people make these really low powered but high fun sea monster decks, and it could be that one. It's just once you start going Simic, it's kind of hard to keep it low power.
Yeah, Simic kind of slaps even if you do nothing throughout the game. It just rewards you for doing what you want to do in Magic.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Next up, we've got Mizzix Replica Rider. For 4 colorless and a red, you get a 4/5 legendary goblin wizard with flying. Whenever you cast a spell from anywhere other than your hand, you may pay a colorless and a blue or red mana. If you do, copy that spell and you may choose new targets for the copy. If the copy is a permanent spell, it gains haste, and at the beginning of your end step, sacrifice this permanent. This card is straight fire. This card is so good.
I'm not seeing the line
Um,
here, Martin. Explain where I'm casting spells other than my hand, where this is spitting fire on the dragon.
I don't know if you know this, but Red's card draw all says exile cards and then cast them
It's from Exile. That's where it is. Okay,
from
I'm
exile.
putting it
Yeah,
together. I'm putting it together. Okay.
yeah. You could also foretell, although red's not really a foretell color, blue is. So there's probably some decent foretell cards there that you could run, especially if this was your commander. But yeah, this is just kind of like another way to do like the Exile Matters dot deck that's been really popular the last few years. A lot of times it's red core that does that, like the Prosper Tomebound is a popular exile based commander. So the color's not quite right for that, but I've seen a lot of mono red versions of those too. So I imagine it wouldn't be too hard to get to a red blue version.
Yeah, yeah. That seems like a lot of fun.
I was just gonna say you could even like throw in there some interesting ETB creatures that you want to sack. So you get copies of them, and then they come in and they die, but you get their ETB effect. Could be cool. Agent of Treachery would be a good one to do. So Mizzix, for the lore people out there, is I guess the same person that has that mastery, Mizzix Mastery, which is a red and 3 colorless, and then you can overload it for, I want to say 3 red and 5 colorless, so 8 mana. And basically, you can cast all of your cards in your graveyard that are instants and sorceries for free when you overload it. So this would be really good with that, because then if you had the extra mana, you could be paying 2 for each one of those that you want to copy. So Mizzix is good with Mizzix Mastery. Imagine that.
Oh yeah. There's also that what is it? 2 colorless and red. The command you can exile. It's the if you control your commander, you get additional mode. Jessica's command.
Jessica's Will.
Jessica's Will.
Jessica's
yes.
Will. Mm-hmm.
Jessica's Will in this deck will just do work.
Yeah.
Because you're gonna get the mana to pay to copy those spells.
Mm-hmm.
I can see this commander. Yeah. If you're running this as your commander, you're gonna build up to a really big turn.
Right. You probably want to be running cards that reduce your mana cost to allow you to copy more spells. I'm thinking Birgi, the red and 2 colors for a legendary 3/3. I think it's a dwarf, and it says whenever you cast a spell, add a red mana to your mana pool.
Oh yeah, Birgi. She seems really good. Her backside, I think, allows you to exile cards too, so there's double synergy there as well.
Double synergy, yeah. Birgi would definitely go in this Mizzix deck. Man, I want to build that one now.
Oh no, the list, ever growing list, right?
I need more money. Somebody give me a lot more money,
please. All right, next up we have Mr. Rabbit here. We have Preston the Vanisher. He is a 2/5 for 3 colorless and 1 white. He's a legendary rabbit wizard, and he has whenever another non-token creature enters the battlefield under your control, if it wasn't cast, create a token that's a copy of that creature except it's a 0/1 white illusion. He also has for 1 colorless and a white, sacrifice 5 illusions, exile target non-land permanent. So I'm not really paying attention much to that second ability, but the non-token ETB, if it wasn't cast, makes for a pretty fun deck to build around. I also really like, I don't know, is this our first rabbit commander, Martin? I feel like that I'm seeing a theme there as well.
I think it might be, as there haven't been a lot of rabbits in Magic in general until relatively recently.
Yeah,
I would if I was a gambling man, I would bet 1 commander deck on Preston being the first rabbit legend. Yeah, this guy's great. I don't know if I like him as a commander.
Just because he's mono white.
Yeah, he's mono white, and if I'm doing flicker shenanigans, I really like being as many colors as I can get. Like minimum blue and white, or Bant is really good. Esper's really good. Eventually, we'll get a 5-color flicker commander, but this is kind of like a Panharmonicon, which I like a lot. Create all these tokens, which don't really do anything after their token. So, you have this 0/1 white illusion Muldrifter flying about doing nothing. Well, eventually you can sack it to exile a non-land permanent, which is, I think, pretty good. You really want to run the mass flicker cards for this. Like Lazelle's Acrobatics, where you exile all of your creatures and then they come back. So they're really good with this, but it's also kind of bad in that once they come back into play, you don't get back the tokens that you had created before. But you do get copies of the creatures again. So maybe you sacked the tokens you had, flicker them all, and then you get all new tokens to get more ETB effects. Pretty good, I think. Pretty good card.
Yeah, I feel like this is probably going to have some infinite combos too, just in the way it's worded, where if a creature's ETBing non-casting, they did restrict it with the non-token creature, which is probably going to restrict a lot of obvious combos, but there's definitely, I'm sure they'll find a way to break this relatively quickly. It also seems like it could fit into a lot of non-combat sneak attack decks, where if you're trying to get creatures for the ETB, now a lot of sneak attack decks are trying to sneak attack those big creatures, which won't help because it's resetting that 0/1 illusion. But if you're just looking for the ETB or LTB, perhaps this would be included in those decks as well.
Right. No, that would be a cool way to spin on it. I think it's pretty obvious on its face that this wants to be a flicker deck, right? But I think it could be other ways. You could also do this with Reanimator.
Oh,
You
okay.
could animate something and get a copy of the token, which would probably be good in some kind of Orzhov reanimator deck. Or you could also do a white-blue reanimator with Shorkai as the commander. That would probably be another good
Oh,
spot
that
for this
seems like
guy.
it would be really good. Yeah.
Yeah, and you could still run a lot of the ETB stuff like Agent of Treachery, which would be an awesome one to do with this too. But I want to go back to what you were talking about with the infinite combos with this guy. So let's kind of set up the situation and see if we can figure it out. So we have Preston, the magical rabbit, and we have a two exile ETB creatures like Fiend Hunter,
Yes.
right? So if the Fiend Hunter enters the battlefield, and then we get a token copy, the token copy then targets the Fiend Hunter, and then whenever that token leaves, I don't know. I'm trying to figure out a way to create. I think we could create infinite enters the battlefields.
Think that this card creates that scenario where you go from needing three Fiend Hunter effects to only needing two. If you have something that's exiling when it ETBs, if you can have two of those, so if you have Fiend Hunter in any other one, so Abdel Adrian's another really popular one in mono
Oh
white,
yeah.
where if you have both of them on the battlefield, I'm fairly certain that you can make both infinite illusions as well as infinite soldiers, which I mean you can take advantage of with it however you want. But
You could do something that pings people whenever a creature enters the battlefield, which would probably mean you would need black. I'm trying to think of a card that does that. I know there's that
yeah,
artifact where every time it untaps, every time something comes into play, and then you can tap and sack a creature to get an effect.
yeah, you've
I think
got
it does
the
one
blasting
damage.
station. I
Right.
believe is the card you think, and then you also have Alter the Brood, which is the colorless. When
Mm.
at ETBs you have an opponent mill a card, so you can just basically mill everybody out. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I would definitely think that I really like the Orzhov Reanimator, like you were saying. I think that's going to be one of the stronger ways to build it for sure.
Yeah, yeah. You could even do like Esper, because I do think one of the best things you could be doing is stealing your opponent's stuff. Because it doesn't matter how big Agent of Treachery is, and even if the token dies, it doesn't matter because Agent of Treachery already did its work, right?
Yeah, you got the effect. Do you care at all about the second ability here?
Oh, I do.
Yeah,
I care about it, and the fact that I'm sure you will use its ability at some point in time in Commander games. But if it wasn't there, you would still play this card.
that's true. That's fair. That's very fair. It is a nice little added bonus there. And you also get the added bonus, right? He's a magician. He's the rabbit. So what is he going to pull out of the hat?
Oh,
Maybe
that's so
himself.
good. I love
Yeah.
that flavor. Yeah, that's cool. All right. Next up, we've got Rudolph the Duskbringer. I don't think that's how it's pronounced, but I will never not call this guy Rudolph, especially
Rudolph
around
the
Christmas
Red-Nosed
time.
Reindeer. Yeah.
Yeah. He's a legendary creature, vampire angel, 4/4 for a black and 5 colorless, so 6 mana gets you a 4/4. Flying, Death Touch, and Lifelink. It says whenever you gain life, Rudolph Duskbringer gains indestructible until end of turn. At the beginning of your end step, you may pay Orzhov hybrid. So there seems to be a cycle of these guys that have like a hybrid cost in them. But you may pay a white or a black and a colorless, so 2 mana. And when you do, return target creature card with mana value X or less from your graveyard to the battlefield, where X is the amount of life you gain this turn. Oh, Preston, you have a friend here in our white black reanimator deck.
Yeah, those seem like they'd be pretty good together. The
Yeah.
lifelink, vampire, angel, it's all linking up. Reanimator. I mean,
Yeah, white black likes to gain life.
I think
Yeah,
this is going to be a
cool.
really popular one. I think because it's really strong.
It's strong and it has two things that everybody loves: life gain and vampire angels. Like two relevant creature types and a life gain strategy seems pretty good.
Yeah, I'm really glad they made it 6 mana though. That seems like a really fair CMC to pay for this kind of effect.
Yeah, could you imagine if it was like 4 mana?
Oh gosh, yeah,
Oof.
not good.
All right.
So next up we have Zask's Skittering Swarmlord. He is a 5/5 for 3 colorless and 2 green. He's a legendary insect, and he has you may play lands and cast insect spells from your graveyard. Whenever another insect you control dies, put it on the bottom of its owner's library, then mill 2 cards. It also has for 1 in either black or green Target insect gets +1/+0 and gains Death Touch until end of turn. Seems like a really fun, fair card. It's dealing with insect matter cards, which is pretty unique. It kind of does an impression of that frog card. Oh, I'm blanking. Help
Gitrog.
me out. Gitrog, yes. It does a
Yeah,
weird
Gitrog
Gitrog
monster. Yeah,
impression.
they definitely like each other. Gitrog says that anytime a land goes to the graveyard, you can draw a card, but you also sack a land at the beginning of your upkeep, and you can play an extra land each turn. So you're kind of churning through your deck, playing extra lands, losing lands, trying to get them back from the graveyard with this guy. This guy also helps you mill, but that's only if you have an insect die, so you actually have to put insects in your deck for this guy to mill. There's Grist. I think Grist is the obvious card that plays well with this. The insect planeswalker, technically a creature when it's anywhere but in play. So if it's in the graveyard, it's an insect creature.
Yeah, I mean, I think
But
Wizards is really doing a good job here of late, I think, of giving those tribes that don't have a playable commander a commander that you can play with it. So this is your
yeah,
clear insect tribal commander, and it seems fair for 5 mana, and it seems like it's gonna have people are gonna have a lot of fun playing with this guy. I think.
I think a lot of people will just play this as a Crucible of the Worlds in your command zone.
Oh, that's
This is
fair, but where's the fun in
yeah.
that?
Well, there can be a lot of fun in that. My Damia deck is a graveyard lands matters deck, and this card fits pretty well in that deck. I'll probably replace something in there for it. So I think a lot of people play this guy just as a way to have a Crucible of Worlds in your command zone. I mean, could you imagine having Strip Mine out and, and then having a couple of ways to play an extra land a turn? You could just be strip mining everybody all the time and just make life super miserable for everybody. Just taking all of the fun for yourself.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
there's other ways that are more fun, but like lots of landfall shenanigans and sacking lands for benefits. But yeah, I think this guy's cool. I think he's going to see a lot of play.
definitely,
Uh,
definitely. I think whenever you can play more lands, it's always a good thing. It's in green. I don't know if the black will be super synergistic, but definitely some black insects out there. I don't know if this will combo with Dagmar Salvage like Gitrog does or not, but that's because I don't know how to play the Gitrog deck. So we'll move on from
I know
there.
it won't a combo like that. But the one cool thing I like about this guy is Scoot's form is an insect.
Oh, that's a good call out. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Scoot Swarm, best insect. And it's land matters, so it goes really well, those two cards, and I'm sure we'll see more of that because it seems like, for whatever reason, insects like the lands. Next up, we got Runati, Behemoth Caller. Green and two colorless for a 1/3 legendary cat shaman. It says whenever you cast a creature spell with mana value 5 or greater, that creature enters the battlefield with X additional +1 counters on it, where X is the mana value -4. Wow, that is a mouthful. Also, creatures you control with 3 or more +1/+1 counters on them have haste, and you can tap it for a green mana. It seems like it's meant to go with that Benevolent Hydra. They both kind of want to be in the same deck. It maybe doesn't want to be in your artifact version with all of the modular, but it wouldn't be bad there. But it just seems like a very fair Hydra commander.
Yeah.
Instead of it being
I feel like it has enough text on it without that tap to green. The worst case scenario, this is just a 3 mana dork. Like, it's really good.
yeah, I like it. It seems cool. There was another one that cared about big creatures. Recently, it was a green and two colorless for a 2/3, and you could tap it for, I want to say, mana equal to its power, and then if you play a creature with 5 power or more, you put a +1/+1 counter on it and untap it. Does that sound right to you?
Oh, is that from Baldur's Gate, perhaps?
I was referring to Gwenna, Eyes of Gaia. It's green and two colors for a 2/3, legendary elf druid scout. Tap to add 2 mana in any combination of colors, but only use it to cast creature spells or activate their abilities. Whenever you cast a creature spell with power 5 or greater, put a +1/+1 counter on Gwenna, and untap it. So she gets bigger, but the 2 mana is all that she does to cast. But it just seems like these two cards are trying to do a similar thing, and I like Gwenna better. I think.
Yeah, but
Right?
if that's what you're running in your command zone, I feel like you're always better to have a redundant effect, so that would fit in really nicely.
No, 100%. You're correct. Yeah.
Yeah, that seems like a really good card, and I feel like it's gonna see a lot of play. People love to play cats in Magic.
Yeah, cats are fun. It's weird though, because it's a cat shaman that cares about hydras, basically, right?
Yeah,
I would,
I don't know about that one actually. Now that you say that.
yeah, I don't know, it's weird. There's another non-commander card here that actual commander card, not legendary. I like Termination Facilitator. It's a black and a colorless for a 1/3 human assassin. You can tap it and put a bounty counter on target creature or planeswalker. You only activate that as a sorcery. And whenever a creature or planeswalker an opponent controls with a bounty counter on it is dealt any damage, destroy it.
Okay.
Yeah, they've been slowly trickling out these assassin cards that deal with bounty counters, getting some benefits. They're not pumping them out in like large quantities, so we don't really have a full deck yet. But it's definitely something to keep an eye on. It's a cool card.
Yeah, it would be a lot of fun. That seems like a good synergy.
Mm-hmm.
All right. All right. Next up, we have Biblioplex Kraken. He is a, or he or she is a 4/5 for four colorless in a blue. He is a creature Kraken, and when he ETBs, scry 3. And when Biblioplex Kraken attacks, you may return another creature you control to its owner's hand. If you do, Biblioplex Kraken can't be blocked this turn. Maybe on the lower end of power scale here, but you got to play this alone just for the art. It goes in the Sea Folk decks. The unblockability makes it kind of cool in maybe lower power ninjutsu decks. It seems like a sweet flavor win. What do you think here, Martin?
Yeah, this definitely seems like it's gonna be in a Kennesos deck. You know, the blue-green commander we talked about earlier that has the scry effect, and then wants to put Krakens into play. Like this guy's just one of those cards. It scries to help put your Krakens on top of your deck, and it attacks. You can return creatures to your hand for maybe ETB effects. I don't know. It seems like a fun card for sure. But one of the best uncommons, I think, in the set is Disciple of Perdition. It's a black and a colorless for a 1/3. And it says when Disciple of Perdition dies, choose one. However, if you have exactly 13 life, you can choose both. Probably not real common, but the 13 matters. One is you draw a card and you lose one life. You can't hate to draw a card when you sacrifice a creature or something, right? The second one's the one I like the best is exile target opponent's graveyard, and that player loses one life. So in Commander, any way you can have incidental graveyard hate is huge. And this guy just seems like for an aristocrats deck, this is incidental graveyard hate that can also draw you a card if the graveyards aren't relevant at that time.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like for 2 mana, I'm used to seeing like a 2 mana creature will exile a single card from a graveyard, but 2 mana exile target opponent's graveyard. It seems really good.
Mm-hmm.
The 13 life, is that supposed to be a new theme for this set, or is that something we've seen before?
Tricks to deck Defilia.
Oh yeah, yeah. I actually do know what you're
So
talking
it's
about.
it's an ongoing theme that's been in cards. Tree of Perdition is in this set too, which is a black and 3 colorless for 0/13, 0 power, 13 toughness tree. But you can tap it and switch its defense with target player's life. And so there's some shenanigans that can be had with that. There's also the blue and a colorless for a 1/3, pay some mana, draw a card, and then if you have 13 cards in your hand, you win. It's just a lot of these 13's matters cards. They're usually more fun than good, and this one in particular feels like it's very good with a little bit of extra fun if you happen to be exactly 13 life.
Yeah, one out of every maybe 20 games, you get double the effect, and it's kind of a cool play.
Mm-hmm.
A really cool artifact in this set is Instruments of War. For 4 colorless, it has Flash, and as Instruments of War enters the battlefield, choose a creature type. Creatures you control of the chosen creature type get +1/+1. So, possibly a few combat tricks with Flash that it enables. The Anthem seems really good. The colorless, so you can play it in any tribe you want. Just overall, this card seems like a win to me.
Yeah, it seems like a really good budget option. I think the one reason that I like this card is the Flash. If it didn't have Flash, wouldn't be that interested in it really. But the fact that it has Flash, you can come down unexpectedly. You can really win some combats. Surprise, make blocks bad all of a sudden out of surprise. I think it's pretty good. It's something people should keep in their back pockets for their more budget tribal decks. Another good lower rarity card is Planner Out Atlas. It's 2 mana for an artifact, enters the battlefield tapped. You can tap it for a colorless mana. Okay, that's fine. But when it enters the battlefield, you can look at the top 4 cards of your library, and if you do, you can reveal up to 1 land card from among them, and then put that card on the top of your library and the rest on the bottom in a random order. So you know, 2 mana rocks are usually okay, especially in colors that have a hard time with ramping. You know, like white or black or something, or blue. You could see playing it, but I like this one in a deck that has more lands matters themes. So digging for your Gaia's Cradle or digging for your Glacial Chasm or whatever other land is really strong in your deck, this kind of helps you dig through your deck to find them when you're not in green.
Yeah, it's definitely. I feel like this is comparable to a Mind Stone on some sort of land matters deck, but outside of there, the fact that it enters tapped, I think, is gonna hold it back at being played in a lot of decks.
Yeah, I probably will put this in any black deck that has the Cabal Coffers combo.
That is true now because turning that online really ramps you up, beyond what black usually does.
For sure. Okay, my personal pick for the best card in the set is Primeval Herald. And by best card in the set, I mean the card I'm most excited for.
A personal best, yeah.
Yeah, personal best. Primeval Herald is a green and 3 colorless for a 3/1, so that's 4 mana for an Elf Scout. It has Trample, and it says whenever it enters the battlefield or attacks, you may search your library for a basic land card, put it on the battlefield tapped, and then shuffle. Can you guess what deck this goes in?
Henzi.
Yeah. So this is just another effect where if I have Henzi out, this is going to be 3 mana or less to ramp 2 lands into play tapped and draw a card and maybe nug somebody for 3 damage. It's perfect because I was looking for another card like that in that deck because I've only got like 3 or 4 in there right now. I'd really like to get like to 5 or 6 so I can consistently hit it after I play Henzi. Give me the mana advantage that is so important in Commander.
Yeah, that's basically just a stronger Cultivate, right? I mean, for 4 mana, but that's really good. That's it fits in that deck perfectly, and I don't know. Even if you're not giving it haste, that seems like a pretty relevant card, and it's an elf, so you'll see a lot of play there as well.
Possibly, I don't know. The fact that it does it on enter the battlefield and attack is pretty good for a lot of decks. But I have a feeling like if you're not able to get it haste, it's not going to be really worth in most decks.
Just in case you can't swing with it, that's a good point.
Yeah, because if you can consistently attack with it when it comes into play, then you know you're getting 2 lands, and then 4 mana for 2 lands is kind of standard. Coming with the body's nice, but I don't know. I feel like it's pretty replaceable otherwise. But in Henzi, it's just goes from okay to really good.
Next up, we have Dutiful Replicator. He is a 3/2 for 3 colorless. He's an artifact creature, assembly worker. When Dutiful Replicator enters the battlefield, you may pay 1 colorless. When you do, create a token that's a copy of target token you control, not named Dutiful Replicator. So, a bit of a clone effect for colorless, so you can put it in a lot of different decks. The assembly worker type matters in some decks for... I know they're reprinting the Urzaland, so that makes me think of that. But the clone effect, I mean, having that where you can put it in any deck seems really relevant. Any ETB where you can flicker this seems really cool. What do you think here, Martin?
I really like this for the blue-red Brutaclad deck, where you're trying to create weird tokens and then copy them, and then this will allow you to copy them, and also, like you said, you might be able to get multiple copies going. Definitely some shenanigans to be had with this if you can turn this into a token itself, but it has to change its name. So there's a way to do that, to make a token of this guy, but have it have a different name. And that's kind of what I want to do, is kind of go infinite with it, but I don't know. Feels like a strong card in the right deck, but it's pretty niche.
Yeah, I could see it as well as in any kind of populate themed decks. It'd be kind of cool. Probably an auto include just because you usually have really strong tokens in that deck as well.
Right.
All right, Martin. Well, we discussed a lot of the new cards coming from the Jumpstart 2022. Let's toss it on over to you for Finance Corner for this week.
Yeah, this week on Finance Corner, I just kind of want to point out that the 30th anniversary countdown kits are hitting people's hands right about now. In fact, I just got mine in the mail today, so I'm going to be opening that up on the old YouTubes here coming up. excited to do that. I might actually have to do that tonight, so I don't have to wait to find out which ones I got. But the point is a lot of people bought these, and a lot of even like speculators bought a bunch of these to flip, trying to make some money on their purchase. So the cards that are going to be sold on the secondary market is going to be now. It's either going to be, earliest a couple days ago to over the next 2 weeks. So you might want to watch the prices and pick up any cards that you want, especially the foils. I mean, the foil Necropotence in it right now is going for like 40 to 60 bucks. I think it's a steal at 40 since the original one was like 35.
Oh wow, yeah, that seems.
So that's pretty cheap. That's pretty dope art on that Necropotence. Same thing with Shark Typhoon is like a normally a $10, $15 card, and the foil one right now is going for like 22 to 29. Seems like not a bad price, and that's probably because the people who were able to get in early did, and then the people who weren't able to get in haven't really started buying yet, because they're just now hitting the shelves. So keep an eye out, pick up the ones you want. A lot of good cards.
Yeah, is there any card in particular that you're really hoping to get that foil version of for your pack in particular, Martin?
Oh, um, Deathrite Shaman and Birthing Pod are both pretty good picks for my Henzi deck, so I would like to get those in the full art borderless foils. The art on that Birthing Pod is so creepy. I love it.
Yeah, it definitely fits the card. Yeah, personally, I'm really hoping that I get the Thalia or the Mishra's Factory just for the flavor, but we'll see. I was debating whether or not to build a Dragon Lord Ujitao deck as well because I don't have any of the Elder Dragon decks themselves, but we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, yeah. Thalia's, I mean, if you wanted that foil, you can buy it right now for like $7. So
That seems
not
like a
one of the more
steal.
expensive ones. Yeah, it does. It's cool. It's a really cool art. That's about it for this week. Thanks for joining us here for our weekly podcast, Cooking with Cardboard. You guys have a great holiday season.
Thanks for tuning in. See ya.